Hi everyone. I'm lucky to be the last one standing between now and the end of the day and the after party. So I hope it will be an interesting one. just to set this, just to set the stage about what I'm going to focus this presentation on. It's really about how to use IP for primary distribution. What are the constraints and what are the benefits, the advantages, and also how you can make a choice in the different manner to deliver primary distribution using other ways of, let's say, transportation than this historical satellite use case. So when we speak about primary distribution, essentially we are speaking here mainly point to multi-point. So between a content provider that creates content and distributes that to a lot of different affiliates. This content obviously needs to be protected. This content needs to be managed, which means that you need to be able to handle the user rights aspects which are linked to content when you can or cannot use the content in a given market, for instance. Obviously, when you are talking let's say large-scale distribution systems, you need not only to be able to transfer your content, you need also to be able to manage your downstream devices, whether it's for upgrade, whether it's for control command and monitoring aspects as well. And what we see more and more coming in terms of trends coming from the market is a request for solutions that are more flexible and that allows for more personalization of the content at the edge when it comes to distribution systems. Obviously, the starting point it's the satellite. Most of the historical primary distribution system rely, especially large scale, rely on satellite solutions. The idea there, obviously, is to be able to deliver low content in the footprint of the satellite. That being said, we all know that this satellite transmission is using bandwidth, and there are more and more constraints coming from governments, authorities, and trying to reduce the spectrum which is allocated to video delivery systems and handing this over to, for instance, telecommunication companies. This has been the case, for instance, here in the US. You may be familiar with the FCC that has reclaimed part of the C-band spectrum in order to reallocate the historical spectrum which was allocated for satellite distribution to telcos for the 5G launch. So this is creating, obviously, a lot of constraints. The good thing, though, is there are new technologies with new codecs, new modulation, which allows to do better, also on the satellite side of things. But beyond that, we see also more and more customers that want to do things differently. And there are multiple reasons for that. First, the cost aspect. When you rent a satellite transponder, you pay, and usually you are renting this for several years. You pay by the bandwidth. It's quite expensive, obviously. And the possibility, especially for companies that are event-based, for instance, to move to other type of more modern approach with pay-as-you-use models are not really easy to implement on satellite deliveries. And this is where IP can really help, let's say, providing other alternatives for distribution. Beyond the cost aspect, obviously, if you are doing a usage-based pricing model, you move away from upfront capex expenditures, which can be quite heavy. At the same time, it's not only about price. We see also more and more content providers that want to distribute their content across the countries, in other territories, in other areas of the world, and essentially here, satellite no longer works for those type of use cases. You need to have other alternatives, and this is also where IP can provide an answer to that. In order to enable this, there are new protocols which allow to do secure transmission over IP. We'll get into those details. And also, there are also now a more efficient codecs that can also allow to drive down cost, because the cost aspect is also important on the IP delivery side of things. What makes things more complex is that for all those distribution environments, people were used to use, classical, simple IRDs for receiving the content from the bird, eventually descrambling, and do the decode, and so be it. When it comes to IP, and especially when you need to do content repurposing, there is more to be done at the edge, and this is where we are moving from solutions that were historically only doing decoding to solutions that can now do much more, let's say, heavy lifting processing of the content at the edge, especially to manage also the customization aspects that I was mentioning. IP distribution is definitely trending up because of those reasons. I just want to do a small vocabulary precision, because some people are mixing IP delivery with cloud delivery. And I do a bit of distinctions there. When I talk about cloud distribution, I really speak about using the open internet and the public CDNs in terms of transportation. So it's a subset of the IP delivery possibilities, which leads me to just this landscape. Essentially, starting from the top, obviously satellite still being dominant there. That being said, we see more and more those three other use cases appearing. IP multicast distribution, and we'll get a bit more details in the next slides around what it means. And cloud distribution, using both either open internet and secure transport protocols like SRT, for instance, or CDN-based delivery using the HTTP-based protocols, which allow the possibility to cache the content, and we'll see downstream why it is important. Obviously, it's not so easy to navigate and to choose, so you need to be aware of the criteria and the main, I would say, advantages and drawbacks that comes with one or the other of those IP delivery solutions. If I start with IP multicast here, I will be focusing on at least two main criteria, one being the latency, and the second one being the cost. When we talk about IP multicast here, essentially the broadcast, let's say the content provider will have access to a managed IP network. Managed IP network meaning it can be multicast enabled, and it allows to have a, let's say, a very classical IP multicast based transmission of the content using UDP protocols to the different affiliates. The advantage of this is that from a latency perspective, it's even faster than satellite. We are talking here about latency, which can be easily 10 milliseconds or below. So compared to a classical satellite, I would say 500 to 1 second. You can be, for people who say, oh, IP is slow, you cannot do low latency on over IP, that's absolutely not true. Yeah, exactly. So this allows you to go very fast in terms of latency. That being said, the problem is those managed networks, multicast enabled, etc., they are expensive. That's one of the main drawbacks of this. And all IP networks are not multicast enabled, which can make things more complicated for people. And this is why the alternative of using open internet and protocols in order to, let's say, counterbalance the unreliability of the open internet has come to friction. The first example that I'm going to use here is using a protocol like SRT in order to secure a UDP-based also distribution system, but in this case, we are no longer on a managed IP network. We are using the open internet. And we are using the SRT, let's say, content protection mechanisms built in the protocol itself to make the transmission more robust and more secured. There are other protocols than SRT. You may be familiar with, for instance, RIST or others. I'm presenting here mostly SRT because of the large adoption in the video ecosystem of this protocol. It's an open source solution which has been historically created by Haivision, for instance, which is here on the show floor. And it allows to more or less bring satellite-like latency. So we are in the hundreds of milliseconds in terms of latency if you are using SRT. I would say the disadvantage of SRT is also on the cost side. So it's cheaper than using a managed IP network. But that being said, it's much higher cost than using a CDN-based delivery. And the reason for this, and that's the last example in the presentation, using a CDN-based protocol like HLS, which is based on HTTP, it allows to the video content to go through a classical CDN infrastructure. And this CDN infrastructure is bringing one key aspect, the caching possibility. And caching allows to have and drill down the cost of transmission for the content provider. So the real advantage for those HTTP-based protocols and the caching aspects using the CDN is obviously the cost. That's the cheapest solution that is available in order to deliver content over IP. There is one big drawback when it comes to primary distribution aspect using those type of protocols. It's the latency. Because the latency here, we are speaking exactly the same type of solution that you are using traditionally with streaming, which means that you have streaming-like latency. And here we are speaking latencies that can be easily in 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds or so. So you can see there is a large order of magnitude of difference compared to a classical satellite feed. So as a summary, if we compare to satellite, 500 to 1 second latency, managed IP faster than that, much faster than that. SRT ballpark in the same range. And on the CDN side, 10 to 30 seconds of latency. So first key aspect, satellite matching is possible with IP on the latency side. And obviously there is a direct link with the cost aspect. That is, the lower the latency, the higher the cost of the distribution. There is no magic, unfortunately, around that. So, but which cost are we talking about? So I did a quick math using classical European examples. Here, you can adjust this table to your own case. But if we compare to a classical satellite rental, $500,000 per year for 40 megabits per second, you are paying more or less $41K per month, which means more or less $1,000 per megabit. And that's one shot. It's important to understand because when you move to IP, and especially if you move to a SRT or HLS based, the cost in itself will depends on the cost you are paying to your internet provider or to your CDN, if you are working with Akamai or Limelight or others. But the cost on the SRT and CDN side, it's not only per megabits, but it's per megabits per site. Because remember, SRT and CDN are unicast based, which means that to send the content to the three of you, I will need to replicate the content 3 times. So I will be paying 3 times for the distribution of the content from the provider to the affiliate. Whether, when you are doing satellite, obviously, whether you have 1 affiliate or 1,000 affiliate, nothing's different. And when you come to IP multicast delivery, you only pay once also because of the multicast aspect of the distribution. So if you do a quick math, you will see that to be able to match the satellite cost below 400 receiving sites, so for small-scale systems with a low number, I would say, of affiliates, the SRT delivery over IP is still cheaper than satellite. And on the CDN side, so using HTTP protocols, it's below 300 sites, more or less, you will be cheaper than satellite. If you are above that, it means that satellite is still the cheapest mechanism for very large number of affiliates. So that's quite important to understand. And you will see that it has, well, I will be sharing with you a couple of examples, recent examples of what we've been doing. And you will see one size fits all is it's not always the case. Beyond the cost and latency aspects, just one quick word here also on the fact that it's not only about cost and it's not only about latency. You need also to be able to manage your content, to manage the rights aspect linked to delivery. So people in the US here are very familiar with those type of situation where a certain, let's say, content distributor may not have the rights for a certain period of time to air a certain type of content in his market area. So this is why being able to manage blackout, to manage spotlight is also very important when it comes to IP, because you need to do this whatever the delivery mechanism you are going to use. And the reason for me mentioning this is that the way to do those type of blackout management, switching management can differ depending on the IP methodology that you're using, especially when you are doing SRT or I manage IP delivery. In order to do those type of situation, you need to do content processing at the edge in order to be able to replace the content. For instance, getting back to baseband, doing playout, and then re-encoding the stuff. When you are using HTTP-based solutions like HLS, you can do some clever things which can be much more cost-effective, like manifest manipulation, where you are going to be able to change the content address on the fly without having to redecode, retranscode. So that can be a quite nice, cost-effective manner to manage those type of situation. Same thing goes with channel personalization. I mentioned that more and more the content distributors want to have the possibility to create their content, but also regionalize it. Having personalized version of the content is more and more important. It's true for the content itself, and it's especially true for the advertisement, because ads are more and more the let's say of the essence when it comes to channel distribution there. And speaking of which, we have a lot more demands in terms of channel variant creation, whether it's about replacing content, replacing ads, or doing, let's say, region-specific graphics and overlays. And similarly, you need to be able to do this, whatever the type of distribution mechanisms that you're going to use. So, moving to the takeaways and what I would like you at least to remember from this short presentation. So we have seen that, okay, essentially three main categories of IP distribution possibilities using managed IP, multicast technology, very low latency, most expensive distribution solution due to the underlying network, edge processing in order to be able to personalize the content. On the SRT side, we are on the same ballpark figures in terms of latency compared to satellite. More expensive than CDN-based, but also an edge processing required, complex edge processing required if you want to personalize your content. And when it comes to HLS, CDN-based HTTP protocol usage, you have OTT latency, so typically above 10 seconds. That's the cheapest mechanisms in terms of delivery. And you can have some very cost-effective manner to personalize your content thanks to manifest manipulation possibilities. Let me now give you a couple of recent examples of distribution systems that we have been doing. I don't have the rights to provide the names of the companies, unfortunately, but just to a couple of um, let's say key facts to see here. No surprise, each time you have a very large number of edge device involved, so a very large number of affiliates receiving the content, satellite is still in the equation. That's one thing. The other important thing is you can see that a lot of those use cases, one, two, three, four, we have already 4 among 6, which are using today IP, whether it's IP multicast or SRT, and I don't have yet an HLS use case here in this diagram. So this is examples that we have rolled out in the last 6 months, so they are fairly recent. And one of the key things that I'm taking away from these examples is that you can see in many of those situations, we have been using multiple delivery mechanisms, not one. And this is where using, let's say, having the possibility to do hybrid distribution is really what's right now is answering most of the situation. In this particular use case, for instance, the customer is using satellite for their mainstream affiliates, and they are using IP multicast for other countries. We have the same situation happening here. This company is distributing using IP multicast within the United States and is using SRT to distribute the same type of content to Latin America, for instance. So they are, let's say, leveraging the different advantages and the different possibilities of distributions that we can offer in order to really make the most and use the right distribution for the right use case. So to conclude, what is the last final word for this presentation? First, there is no one size fits all. No unique architecture. Mostly, we are more and more now delivering hybrid use cases, which are mixing either multiple satellite plus IP solutions, but also multiple different IP solutions depending on the use case. What is very important, obviously, a lot of our customers are thinking long term and want to have possibility to migrate. We have a lot of currently satellite systems on air for which the customers, and one of the key selling factor was the possibility to migrate partially, time after time, part of the channels to IP at the customer space. So having the possibility to preserve the investment and let the customer change his distribution strategy without redeploying all the devices at the edge is really of the essence. So you need to be able to propose to your customers the possibility to change from one delivery system to the other at their own pace. And for this, you need to have devices at the edge, which can be future-proof, allowing multiple type of inputs, can be satellite with descrambling, plus IP multicast, plus HLS, HTTP reception. Extensive video processing is still needed in many use cases to do this personalization, which is more and more important to monetize the content and leverage the possibility to target advertisement to a given audience, to a given country, to a given region. And the possibility, again, to do this strong content customization. And that's it.